Hello all, a great afternoon. Welcome to yet another live session of Narayana IAS Academy. I am extremely happy as well as excited in stating that we have actually come to a close with respect to the prelims, that is the prelims masterclass that we've taken up, where we were dealing with the top 100 or the most important current affairs for the upcoming prelims examination 2025. Okay, so this is Sureka Bhaskar. In case you are watching this video for the first time, I would like to say that we had started this series of prelims masterclass a month back, where we had discussed very important current affairs for the past 1.5 years, that is starting from January 2024 till June, not June but till March or April 2025. Okay, so we've picked up topics and where we see that polity has been completed, economy has completed, history, art and culture has been done away with, and now with respect to me, I had actually dealt with environment and ecology, where we actually it was a series of 10 lectures where we discussed all the important as well as the critical topics that have that are the high potential areas which have a high probability of appearing in your upcoming prelims examination. So after finishing the environment and ecology, we moved towards this government schemes, policies and initiatives, as well as reports and indices, global reports and indices, as well as the reports released by different ministries of the government of India. So after completing that, then we shifted our gears to another most important or high yielding area, that is international relations. Okay, so if you see international relations, this actually happens to be your class 6. Okay, so for the first 5 classes, let us actually see what are all the topics we've discussed in brief, and then I will take you to the topics that we will be discussing today. Okay, so today happens to be the last class of our IR session, and we will be closing this, and after which we will face the preliminary examination having conceptual clarity, enough revision, sufficient sleep and maintaining good health. We will perform well there. Whether we ace it or not, please be confident that you're going to clear it. So just face the examination without any fear, then come back, and then we will again meet for another important session where we will analyze how the questions have actually been in this particular year, and then we will move towards our mains preparation. Okay, so this is what we're going to discuss today. So we started with this particular series of international relations. So all of you know we started with international relations, and if you move with me, let's quickly revise what are all the topics we actually discussed, and then we will move on to today's topics. Okay, so if you see, after the World War II, we actually have what you call it as the United Nations coming into the United Nations, and United Nations actually functioned with 6 important organs, which include the UNGA. Then you had the UNSC, we had the Trusteeship Council that actually got what suspended, and we had the International Court of Justice, and then we have the Secretariat, okay, and as well as the ECOSOC. So these were the 6 organs under which, or you can say with which, the G4 countries had actually represented the reforms, were presented the model reforms also regarding the expansion of representation in the UNSC, okay, where important resolutions and votings actually take place. Okay, so we will discuss, we had actually discussed about the UNSC, that is the United Nations Security Council. Okay, so this is where we started, and India actually had submitted its model reforms. Then we quickly moved towards another article, that is UN peacekeeping force, which are also called as the blue helmets. Okay, so these are the peacekeeping force where these are the armed forces, and these personals are actually contributed by different countries, where Bangladesh actually tops the list, where maximum number of the blue helmets or the UN peacekeeping force, the soldiers, come from Bangladesh. Okay, and we also saw what has been India's association with the peacekeeping forces and how they have actually achieved the in establishing peace in conflict ridden zones, and we saw what are all the places where these peacekeeping force actually was stationed, and what were all the milestones they actually achieved in the conflict zones, for which they were actually given the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, so this is what we discussed. So why are we revising all this? Is This is very important because it's going to give you a sense of completion of how many topics that you have completed for international relations. Okay, then we moved on to the 53rd session or the 53rd recent session of the UN Statistical Commission. So we saw what is the significance of statistics. Okay, so this is nothing but collecting the data, analyzing the data, interpreting it, and you are disseminating it to the world. So this can be data with respect to all your environmental sustainability efforts. This can be the data related to what is your economic growth. You compare with the best practices across the globe, all that you do, and for that you need data which is interpreted, and that is called as statistics. For that, the overseeing body of the global statistics actually happens to be what? The United Nations Statistical Commission. Okay, so after looking at this, we moved into another interesting concept of Palestine wanting to become a part of the United Nations. So we saw what is the recent status or the current status of Palestine in the United Nations. Okay, so whether it is a permanent member or not, and for any country to be a permanent member or not, then whether there is actually a requirement of unanimous voting of the 5 members of the UNSC, or whether there has to be an amendment that has to be made to the charter. All that we discussed in this particular article. Okay, then we moved forward and looked at this particular agency, that is United Nations Relief and Work Agency, work agency for helping the Palestinian refugees in the Near East. Okay, so recently what happened, the United States along with the other Western countries, okay, specifically from the European Union, have stopped their funding to this particular agency, that is this relief as well as work agency, that aims or provides to provides the humanitarian aid to the Palestinian refugees for their development, for their skill, etc. But it is just a humanitarian assistance agency, and it is actually does not resolve any kind of political dispute and all. Okay, so for that the funding has actually been cut or withdrawn by the United States. Next, we moved on to the invoking of Article 99 of the UN Charter. So we looked at what is this UN Charter on similar lines to the Constitution of India. We have the guiding principle on which the United Nations actually functions, and that is what is called as the UN Charter. And this charter actually explains about what is the power of the Secretary General in the UNSC in times of emergency, how he has to notify them, and how decisions are actually taken there. Okay, so we looked at this. Now, moving forward, we saw the recent applications that has been made by the Indian government in order to explore the seabed area or the international seabed area, for which what happens, the licensing and the permission has to be given by the International Seabed Authority. So we saw this International Seabed Authority as one of the international maritime organizations that have been set up under UNCLOS, which stands for United Nations Convention on the Laws of Seas, where this is actually one where it has established two other. One is actually the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, and next one is your first one is Tribunal, and the next one is Commission for the limitation of the the continental shelf. Okay, so these are the two bodies, and we actually saw the demarcation of the entire ocean ecosystem into what? The continental area, that is the continental shelf area. There itself we have the territorial waters, the contiguous zone. Then we have the exclusive economic zone, beyond which is your high seas, that is beyond the 200 nautical miles. Then extension of the continental shelf, where the country actually has all the sovereign rights in order to explore all the minerals over there. But beyond that area, you have the continental slope as well as the rise, and after that you have the seabed area, where the license or the permission of the International Seabed Authority is important. Okay, so this is what we saw. Then moving forward, we saw the International Maritime Organization. So International Maritime Organization, that came into existence in 1948, and Canada was the first country to ratify this organization or the convention, and then India actually joined after 11 years. The 50th anniversary, okay, 150th anniversary of the International Postal Union, okay, marking which India has actually come up with a number of postage stamps, okay, recognizing it. So we saw what is the significance of the postage infrastructure in India, how it actually takes care of sending of mails as well as the post, in the transboundary region, etc. Okay, or the transboundary movement, all that we discussed. Then we discussed about the International Telecommunication Union. So what do you mean by the International Telecommunication Union? And we actually, here I forgot to say, here it is a part of ECOSOC. Okay, the parent organization is ECOSOC. Another one we discussed was about WIPO, how WIPO's parent organization is also Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. So about Telecommunication Union, we saw how it is responsible for the communication networks across the country. Okay, so what are all the bands that the satellites must use for the seamless communication across borders? All that we discussed in this article. Then we moved on to discuss the 11th article, which is about India contributing around 500,000 to this particular fund, that is Global Counter Terrorism Fund. So this actually shows how much of trust fund, so how much of commitment India actually has towards counter terrorism. So, okay, all these things we discussed. So in the first class we discussed about all these important topics, that is these 11 topics were discussed. Then we moved on to the next set of articles, that is what we discussed about the various other multilateral organizations. Okay, so multilateral groupings or the organizations, the first of which the coming of existence of what? The World Trade Organization. Okay, World Trade Organization. And here, why this was in news? Because this actually celebrated 30th anniversary of the Marrakesh Agreement. Okay, what is this Marrakesh Agreement? This was signed in 1994. Okay, they actually felt that there has to be an international organization that looks at the regulations and rules for international trade, which is inclusive of not only the trade in the goods but also services, intellectual property, etc. That is why, succeeding the earlier GATT, that is GATT, this is what General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, succeeding that there was establishment of what? The WTO, because GATT actually dealt with the trade in the goods. Okay, so that is what is called as the Marrakesh Agreement, through which WTO was born. Then we moved on to Brazil holding the presidency. Okay, Brazil holding the presidency of the BRICS, and here it actually stated that Indonesia has been the country that has got membership in the BRICS in the year 2025. So we actually saw about this particular BRICS grouping and what is the significance of this grouping for India, and how India has actually fared well using this particular regional bloc. And also we saw what are all the members in addition to this: Brazil, Russia, India, China as well as South Africa. We have Indonesia plus other countries, like whether we have Saudi Arabia, we have Iran, we have Ethiopia, Egypt, etc., which also joined the grouping. Okay, so you need to know who are the members who recently joined. The next article, we looked at the 50th summit of the G7. So we saw G7 grouping, which is nothing but a group of the most advanced nations. And I told you how to remember the G7. There are few members from the UNSC itself, like you have the UK, you have the US, then you have the France over there. Okay, according, what to say, as partners to France, we have other European countries, like what we have Italy as well as Germany. Then you have to add Canada and Japan to it, and this is how you have G7 countries. If you add Russia to it, then they become G8, and you remove Russia and add 4 more like Switzerland, then you have Belgium as well as Netherlands, etc. Then you will actually have your G11, and added to all that, when you add India as well as the African Union, etc., then you will actually have your G20. So this is how we discussed about G7. Then we moved on to the quadrilateral security dialogue. Okay, so what do you mean by quadrilateral security dialogue? This is nothing but it stands for Quad. Okay, so Quad actually started after the 2004 tsunami. Okay, so here there was a grouping of 4 countries, that is India, Japan, US and Australia, came together in order to provide humanitarian assistance to the victims or the people who are in need. Okay, but now it has transcended from the humanitarian aid, but it also has some relevance, but now it has actually become a geostrategic or you can say a partnership where it is actually facing all the regional challenges and it has become resilient. So how it has transcended from that to this is what we discussed in this quad grouping. Then we moved on to the recent warrant that has been issued by the International Criminal Court on the Israeli Prime Minister on the grounds of the crime against humanity, that is genocide. So here we saw what are the powers of the International Criminal Court, when did it come into existence, whether it is part of the United Nations or not. No, it is not part of the United Nations. How it is different from the International Court of Justice, because here if you see ICC, this actually deals, that is it tries with the people who have committed heinous or very very serious crime or anything against humanity. On the other hand, if you see ICJ, it is the topmost body of the United Nations. This is not part of the United Nations. ICJ is part of United Nations, where it tries to resolve the disputes between the member nations of the United Nations. So that is what we saw. Then we moved on to the next agreement, that is the Australia UK US agreement, or the tripartite agreement, where Australia has actually signed an agreement with the other two countries in order to share the nuclear secrets or any information with respect to the nuclear secrets. So this is basically different from that as from Quad Y. One, it is a tripartite agreement. Next one, it basically focuses not on the regional security or the economic integration, but it focuses on defense enhancement. Okay, so this is what is this particular article talking about. Next one, we discussed about the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Okay, so here we saw what are all the eligibility criteria for a country to be a part of the NATO. Okay, and we saw what have been the relationship that India has been sharing with this particular grouping, that is the NATO. Okay, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, where the Article 5 of the NATO was brought, which mentioned about what the collective security. What is collective security? In the backdrop of the 9/11 attacks that actually happened in the United States, they came up or introduced this particular article, where it spoke about the collective security. That means an attack on any ally which belongs to this particular grouping, then it is considered as the attack on the complete group of countries. That is why they actually have to, what to say, they have to provide defense spending to this particular grouping in order to secure this particular Atlantic region. And that is why Mr. Trump had actually said he would not back anybody who is not sufficiently what to say, spending towards or giving for the defense infrastructural development of this particular grouping. Okay, so this is what is NATO. Next one, we saw INS Talwar, which has confiscated around 1,000 kilograms of drugs. Okay, 1,000 kilograms of drugs in the Arabian Sea as a coordinated effort with the combined maritime forces. Okay, so what do you mean by combined maritime forces? We actually saw these are the naval forces or the maritime forces that actually come together in order to enhance the maritime security. Okay, for to fight against the piracy or any kind of terrorist attack that actually happens there through the sea. All that is taken care of by the combined maritime forces, and it also has different task force. We actually saw around the Gulf region, and then we saw in the Arabian Sea region. All that we discussed. Okay, then we moved on to another important article, that is the Five Eye Alliance. Okay, so what do you mean by the Five Eye Alliance? It is a group of the intelligence sharing network of 5 countries. Okay, so 5 English-speaking countries, which includes the UK, the US, and then you have the Canada, then you have Australia as well as New Zealand. Okay, so these countries actually form the Five Eye Alliance. You also have Seven Eye Alliance and the Nine Eye Alliance. We saw which were the addition of other countries. So why this was in news? Because recently Canada had actually put an allegation on India that India could have been a part, or can be the reason behind the recent assassination of a Khalistani extremist or the revolutionary leader Nijar. Okay, so questioning these claims, New Zealand actually came up with new sets of questions asking Canada, what are all the evidences that you have for your allegations that you put on India. So this is why this particular grouping has actually been in news. Okay, now After discussing that, we came to this particular grouping, that is L69, G4 as well as C10 grouping. Okay, so in this grouping we saw how this grouping actually stands for the bid in order to expand the representation in the United Nations Security Council, and that is why we saw that they have also proposed for the reforms, okay, alongside India. So we saw what are all the countries of L69. It was not 69 countries, but it has around 42 countries. We saw that, right? And also we saw the grouping of G4, of which India is also a part. The next one is Germany, Japan, and the rest followed. And then we saw the C10 grouping as well. Then we moved on to another important interagency network, that is asset recovery interagency network. Okay, so in this network we actually discussed about this is specifically in the Asia Pacific region. So here we discussed about what is asset recovery. Okay, what do you mean by asset recovery? Any kind of creation of asset that has been due to the illegal activities done by a company or an individual. How do you trace that asset? How do you freeze it? How do you confiscate it and bring back? That is what is called as the that is the work of this particular agency. Okay, so this is catering to the region of Asia Pacific. So we looked at what is this organization, how it functions, what is the composition, etc. Okay, then we moved to the next important article of Interpol, that stands for International Criminal Police Organization. International Criminal Police Organization. Okay, so we actually saw India celebrated around 75 years of coming into force of this particular Interpol. Okay, so we discussed about what is this Interpol agency, and that actually requires the establishment of a national agency where we have the Central Bureau of Investigation as the representative. Okay, so all that we discussed in this article, and we saw the different kinds of the notices that the Interpol actually comes up with. That is the red notice, blue notice, black notice, yellow notice, etc. Next, we moved on to the oil cuts by the OPEC, that is Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries. They said we are going to we are going to continue with our reduction in our oil exports for the next 1 year, because there is a huge competition or the threat that we are facing with respect to the US shale oil exports. We also saw what is the shale oil. It's a kind of crude oil that gets trapped between the sedimentary rock formations, that is the shale formations now, which is abound in the United States. We saw that Permian, region, okay, where this is actually abound, which contributes to around 70% of the production of shale oil in the United States. Okay, then we moved on to the next article, that is Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity. So what do you mean by this framework of prosperity? This actually aims at economic integration in the Indo-Pacific region. So we looked at IPEF, what is the whether we actually have the participation of India or not, what is going to be the significance for India, all that we discussed in this article. Okay, so there we discussed 11 articles. So here in the second class we discussed about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, almost 14. Okay, so we did 11 plus we did 14. So far we have actually completed around 25 topics. Next, we moved on to our most important topic, that is nothing but your regional grouping. Okay, what is it? It was your regional grouping. So in this regional grouping, what are all the articles we took up? The first one, we started with this ASEAN. Okay, Association for Southeast Asian, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Okay, Asian nations. This is nothing but ASEAN. Okay, so what do you mean by ASEAN? Here the ASEAN members had actually asked the Myanmar Junta in order to focus on ceasefire rather than conducting the elections. We saw ASEAN is one of the first regional organizations of the groupings that came together as early as 1967. Okay, so 1967, and it actually has 10 members. There were 5 founding members. We discussed about Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Myanmar, etc. Next, we moved on to India seeking a membership of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. So what is this regional comprehensive economic partnership, and what are the total members it actually has? There are 15 members, where it has 10 the ASEAN members as well as the 5 free trade agreement members. Okay, so who are the members? South Korea is a part of it or not? All that we discussed here. What is going to be the economic implication that India is again going to have because of this regional grouping? Then we moved slowly towards the relevance of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. So this is what is SARC. So you have the Bangladeshi interim leader. Okay, so Mr. Mohammed Yunus, he actually said that it is important for revival of this particular regional organization, that is your SARC. Okay, so here we understood there are 8 members of SARC, and this actually got established around 1985. Whether India is a part of it or not, please do mention that in the comment section. Then we move towards the Pacific Island Forum, which meeting actually took place at Tonga. This is supposed to be one of the countries in Oceania, and we saw what is this forum, how many countries it actually composes of. There are 13 Pacific countries which are involved over here. Then we moved on to BIMSTEC. Okay, so Bay of Bengal Initiative, so BIMSTEC, where India hosted the second BIMSTEC Foreign Ministers Retreat. Okay, so this actually took place in New Delhi. So we actually started discussing about this BIMSTEC, how important is this particular regional grouping for India, and what are all the different countries which are part, and how it actually ensures the security and economic cooperation in this Bay of Bengal region. Then we move towards the Colombo Security Conclave. Okay, Colombo Security Conclave. So this actually establishes the safety in the Indian Ocean region. Okay, so here you see Bangladesh actually joined as the 5th member, and you have other 4 members where India is actually a founding member, Maldives is a founding member, and then you have Sri Lanka, and then you had the Mauritius joining recently, and the recent joiner is our Bangladesh. Okay, so this is why this particular article was in the news. Then we move towards India actually chairing the Colombo process. So what is the Colombo process? It is a process where you actually see the safety and security of the migrants, or what is the kind of, not migrants exactly, the labor workers. Okay, the transboundary movement of the laborers, and whether they are actually guarded, and whether they are actually safe in the other country. All that we will actually see by taking what to say into consideration, or taking inspiration from the best practices across the world. So this was the Colombo process. Then you saw the Gulf Cooperation Council. Okay, so Gulf Cooperation Council. So this is your GCC. So they have actually come up with a unified tourist passport. Okay, tourist visa, not passport, tourist visa, just like the Schengen visa, in order to boost the tourism. Okay, so this is what it is. The next one, we saw the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So what do you mean by Shanghai Cooperation Organization? It was initially brought about by Russia, China, along with other countries, all the Istans. Okay, that is the Tajikistan, the Uzbekistan, the Kyrgyzstan, as well as Kazakhstan. Just remove the Turkmenistan. So that was actually the composition of SCO. And recently we had the annual meeting of the SCO in Astana. It is in Kazakhstan. Okay. So we actually discussed about why this body got established, and what is going to be the implications or the ramifications that's going to be on India because of this grouping, or any decisions taken by other groupings. All that we saw. Next we saw 3 different countries. One is Mali, next is Niger, and next is Burkina Faso. All these moved out of this economic community on West African states. So this actually stands for ECOWAS. So we actually saw what is ECOWAS. This was established when, please mention in the comment section. This was established in order to take care of the trade and economic cooperation as well as security in the West African region. Okay, and why these 3 countries moved out is what you need to mention. Then we discussed about the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. So we saw why this bank actually got established in order to offset the international lending organizations of the West, which are the International Monetary Fund as well as your World Bank. Okay, so in order to offset that, we had the establishment of the AIIB, that is your Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Okay, so what is actually who are all the members of it, what is the stakeholding over there, all that you need to know. And then finally we discussed about the common market, that is the Mercosur. Okay, so here also we discussed almost how many, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 and 12. So already we were done with 25 topics. Now we discussed 12 topics. This actually makes what, 37 topics we have discussed. Okay, so after that topic, what all we discussed, we actually discussed few of the topics in geopolitics also that I haven't included here. Okay, so when we take geopolitics, we discussed what are all the topics. First, we discussed about the Belt and Road Initiative, which is also called as the OBOR, One Belt, One Road Initiative. Okay, so where we have the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor also, where India is actually facing a threat because that corridor passes through the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Okay, so we spoke about the BRI initiative, how it is going to produce the terrestrial or intercontinental connectivity, what are the regions it's going to connect, as well as the sea routes. Okay, and also we saw the practice of debt trap policy of China, such as the Hambantota port, as well as the Chittagong port, as well as the Gwadar it's developing in Pakistan, and all those things were discussed over here. What and why, how it is going to be an implication on India economically and geopolitically, all that we discussed here. Okay, then we moved on to the next topic about the nuclear disarmament. Okay, so we spoke about the reduction or the elimination of the weapons of mass destruction. That can be your biological weapons, your chemical weapons, your nuclear weapons, etc. And what has been India's nuclear doctrine and what the principle it actually follows, the no first use policy. What is another policy that I told you? Please mention in the comment section. It's very, very important. Okay, and then we discussed about all the different treaties or the initiatives taken globally for controlling or for eliminating the nuclear weapons or armaments. That also includes what, the nuclear suppliers group. Then you have the comprehensive test ban treaty, etc., that came into existence. All that we saw. Okay, next one we discussed about the TAPI pipeline. TAPI actually stands for what? It is your Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India gas pipeline. So what is actually the infrastructure, how it is going to economically reduce, and what is going to be the total quantity of this particular infrastructure, who has the maximum shareholding, where you have India as well as Pakistan having 42% and the remaining 16% is by what, Afghanistan. Okay, so this is what we actually saw. Okay, and then we discussed about just a minute, let me see if there are any comments in the comment section. Okay, so nothing so far. Okay, so the next topic is the Indian Ocean Conference that recently took place. Okay, so we saw what is the importance of the Indian Ocean region. Okay, and what are all the different initiatives or the global agreements, where again you actually have the Belt and Road Initiative. We saw the other things also like the IORA, etc. Okay, and then we moved on to discuss about the South China Sea dispute. It is what? South China Sea dispute, and what are all the territorial claims by South China, and what do you mean by the 9 dash lines, and what to say the shoals which are actually contested, what are the islands that are contested. That is, we had the Sparkly as well as the Paracel Islands, and you had the other countries like you have Thailand, you have Philippines, Brunei, etc., which are also claiming the sovereignty or the territorial claims of these particular regions. Okay, so these are the 5 important topics that we discussed. So already we had finished 37 topics plus 5. Now we have completed 42 topics. Now let's move forward and see the next set of topics that we took place, okay, that we actually took. This is about the various agreements, the treaties, and the conventions that we discussed, okay, treaties and the conventions. So the first one is your IMEC. This actually stands for India, Middle East, Europe Corridor. Europe corridor. So here we saw how the world looks at this particular IMEC as what? A cornerstone of global connectivity, and through this global connectivity of railways, of seaways, etc., or the landways, or you can say the road connectivity, how it is going to enhance or boost the global trade, and what is the amount of the goods or the volume of goods that can actually pass through this region. All that we saw. We also saw the different components, the north corridor as well as your east corridor, which is going to connect the Saudi Arabia, then you have the Jordan as well as other areas there, with that of the Greece, okay, the port in Greece as well as the port in Gujarat as well as Navi Mumbai, okay. So all that we saw here. Then we discussed about this important organ of EFTA, that is the European Free Trade Association, which was actually established as an alternate trade bloc to the European Union, and how this is different from that of European Union. European Union is a customs union where there is a common tariff on the goods that actually enter the European Union, and there is free movement of goods between the countries of the European Union with what you say common checks, that is the custom duties, that the custom checks that actually happen. Whereas EFTA is not a what to say customs union, wherever which actually means that the countries can fix their own flexible tariffs and also get into the bilateral agreements, and it also extends to what? The European Union countries, and this was an alternative trade bloc to the countries that did not want to join the European Union, okay. So this is what we saw. Next we saw the we saw India as well as ASEAN getting into a tie, okay, that is trade in goods agreement that was actually signed between the two countries, that is 10 countries of ASEAN, where they actually enhance the trade specifically in goods, okay. However, for services there is a separate agreement that was actually signed in the year 2014, okay, don't confuse with that. And we looked at what is the amount or the volume of trade that actually takes place through this particular agreement. Then we moved on to something called as the Hong Kong Convention. So what do you mean by Hong Kong Convention? Any practices which are sound, okay, that is environmentally sound practices for recycling the ships or the vessels, okay, that actually carry the cargo. This is called as the Hong Kong Convention. Whether India has ratified it or not? Yes, India has ratified it, okay. So how many members are over here? What is the eligibility for a country to become a part of this one, okay. So this Hong Kong Convention is set to get into force in 2005. However, it came back way back in 1990s, okay. So this was your Hong Kong Convention. The next one is the Antarctic Treaty. So we discussed about what do you mean by Antarctic Treaty, and this was covered in your environment and ecology series, okay. And what is the significance of this particular Antarctic region for India, and whether we are carrying research as well as development over there. What has been the outcome? What is the threat of this particular region to climate change and global warming? All that we discussed, okay. And then the last convention that we discussed was the Geneva Convention, okay. So Geneva Convention, this also came into force, and it has been 75 years, okay, since it actually came into existence. And that is why, what is Geneva Convention? This is a convention that aims to enhance the humanitarian or the humane treatment of the people even in the areas of conflict or war torn areas. So this is what is the Geneva Convention, okay. Whether India is a part of this convention or not, or whether this actually acts as the international convention that lays a foundation for all the national humanitarian laws, all that you need to know, okay. So we had already completed 42. Now how many? 1 2 3 4 5 6. We have completed 6 more. So we have completed around 48 topics. So after discussing this 48 or 50 topics, we moved on to the important locations in news. So we classified that as areas that are affected by conflict, okay. So what kind of conflict, whether there is civil war happening there, and what is the reason, okay, whether it is because of any military coup, whether it was because of military coup, or whether it was the ethnic violence. Okay, so we actually saw different regions like the Rakhine state in Myanmar. We saw the Kurram district of what to say of Pakistan. We actually saw the Sana'a of Yemen. Okay, and we saw Darfur of Syria, and we saw Tel Aviv of Israel. So all these places we actually saw. Okay, the Goma we saw in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So where all the civil war or the violence is actually taking place in these particular regions. Okay, so that is how UPSC will actually ask either in the form of match the following, or they will actually ask this particular region is news, is the reason why it is in news because of the civil war, because of a military coup, or whether it is because of hunger, or poverty or famine. All that it can be asked in the examination. Okay, so we looked at the important locations. So having said that, we actually will move to the next set of articles that we will be discussing today. Okay, so what are the articles we will be discussing today? I will quickly see this is actually the miscellaneous section that we will be discussing today. Okay, miscellaneous section. So under this miscellaneous article we have 4 to 5 articles, right? So what are the articles? The first one is Olympics. Olympics 2024, because of late UPSC has been asking questions with respect to the sports. And why 2024 was important? Because we had 4 new sports activity, okay, that was actually there, that is break dancing and then skating, all that have been included. So just we need to know about the Olympics event. Okay, so we will be discussing about Olympics. How did it come into existence, when India had its debut, who were the representatives, and what are the games under Olympics. Okay, and what do you mean by refugee Olympics? All that we will discuss. Okay, then the next one is the mutual evaluation by the Financial Action Task Force. Okay, so Financial Action Task Force actually has this process of mutual evaluation. Okay, what is this task force? It is an international agency which actually evaluates different countries on the efforts that this particular country actually takes on. What? First one, money laundering. Next one, financing of terrorist activities. And next one, using money or generating finances for other illegal activities. So this mutual evaluation is what it has reviewed on how India has actually performed so far, and there it has actually found few gaps, and however India has actually performed or outperformed itself when compared to the previous years. So there in the review mechanism, they'll see what are all the rules, the regulations that India has actually brought into force in order to counter money laundering, and what are the, whether it has actually given the reports, whether it has submitted the reports on time. All that is actually evaluated over here. Okay, so this is your FATF. Next, we will be looking at one particular initiative by the Central Bureau of Investigation, that is the Bharat Poll portal. Okay, so this portal is the initiative of CBI in order to enhance the intelligence security in India, where it will also have contact with the Interpol, that is the International Criminal Police Organization, in order to have information and data about the fugitives. Okay, the people who commit mistakes and crimes, who are demanded by the law and they go into hiding. So this is what is the fugitive meaning. The next article we will be discussing about the FMR. This actually stands for your free movement regime. So what do you mean by the free movement regime? The FMR is nothing but it is a bilateral agreement between India as well as Myanmar. Don't confuse, it's not Bangladesh, it is Myanmar. So it is a bilateral relation between the two countries that enables the free movement of people across the borders, because India and Myanmar actually share a long border of around 1700 kilometers. This border is actually unfenced. Okay, and both the sides actually share the ethnic as well as familial as well as matrimonial ties. Okay, so that is why there is actually free movement regime, but because of there is lot of insurgencies as well as illegal migration that is actually happening. Now the government has actually decided that the distance, okay, under the FMR will be reduced from 40 kilometers to 16 kilometers. Okay, so that is why this particular article is in the news. And final article will be on gray zone warfare. Gray zone warfare. So what do you mean by this particular term, gray zone warfare? Okay, don't think it is deploying the drones, etc. Don't go into too much technicality. This is nothing but it is neither establishment of peace nor the explicit attack that you actually wage on a country. It is neither of it, but then you actually use various other methods. Okay, like for example, there is a cyber attack. Okay, there will be cyber attack, or you can actually cause an economic burden on the country, like freezing the assets. Okay, freezing assets, then giving them the sanctions, etc. So this is actually imposing sanctions. So this is what is called as your gray zone warfare. So all these articles will be discussed today, and after that the final lap that we will actually cover in this particular session are the different military exercises in news. Okay, so this does not need any kind of conceptual clarity, it just needs your understanding and your memory on which exercise has been conducted by which country. So here more or less we have actually revised all the topics that we have covered in the past 6 classes, and now in the remaining 1 hour of time, let us actually revise, or you can say get through this topics quickly. And let me have a short 1-minute break where I will just sip some water and get back. Okay, so I hope we can actually start with the session right now. So first is Summer Olympics 2024. So the 2024 Summer Olympics, officially known as the Games of 33rd Olympiad. Don't get confused with all these terms, okay? So 33rd Olympiad. Usually you have the Olympics that actually takes place once in 4 years, okay? And the 4-year period is called as what? Olympiad. Okay, so they actually calculate, since the inception they calculate for 4 years irrespective of whether the game happens or not, because Olympics did not happen during the World War. Okay, so this is what is called as Olympiad, and now if you calculate as of 2024, this has been the 33rd 4th year. Okay, so that is why it is the Games of 33rd Olympiad that actually took place in 2024 in Paris, France. So now it is important for us to understand what is Olympics. You know, right? It is a global renowned sport where you have athletes as well as people from representing different countries actually come and participate. Cricket is not a part of it, you know that, right? So it's a renowned multi-sport event which is held every 4 years, where top athletes actually come and participate. It has its ancient roots because it started in 776 BC. Okay, and this was to in honor of Zeus. Okay, Zeus, I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it right. According to Greek mythology, he is considered as the godfather or god. Okay, so in honor of him, the Olympic Games actually began in the year 776 BC, and then it was actually held after every 4 years, and it was held for almost 12 centuries, but it stopped around 393 AD. After that, it was revived by a historian, okay, and his name was Pierre de Coubertin. Pierre de Coubertin, he revived in the year 1896, and the first one was actually held in Athens, okay. Athens, Greece. Do you understand? And then what happened is that you had the Olympic Committee that was actually established in 1894. After that, in 1896, we had this particular Olympic game taking place. The symbol, you have 5 interlocking symbols, right? This is the symbol of Olympics, right? It has different colors, okay? So different colors actually has, it has green, then it has blue, green, blue, then it has red, then it has yellow, and then it has black. Okay, these are 5 different colors of the rings, and each color and each ring actually represents all the inhabited continents of the world. These are all some facts that you need to know. These are general knowledge that you need to know. Okay, so green, it actually represents the Oceania region. Blue represents the European region. Red represents the Americas. Okay, Americas are represented by red. Yellow is the Asian region, and finally black is the African region. So this is actually the symbol of Olympics. Okay, so this is what it is. Don't think it is like this. That is the symbol of Audikar. Okay. Anyways, on a lighter note, let's move to the types of Olympics. We have Summer Olympics, Winter Olympics, as well as Youth Olympics. This is also held every 4 years. This is also held every 4 years. And Summer Olympics, they actually have, a lot of summer kind of sports, like you have gymnastics, you have athletics, you have swimming, etc. And the first one actually took place in 1896 in Athens. Okay. And following that, you have Winter Olympics. Here, the inaugural Winter Olympics actually started in 1924. Again, not that important. It took place in France. Then you have Youth Olympics. People between 15 to 18 years actually participate. The first game actually started in 2010, and the first Winter Youth Olympics was in 2012. Okay. So, this is what is about the Olympics game. So, now if you see some of the key facts that you just have to know, the host city of 2024 Olympics was actually Paris, France. Okay, and this is the Summer Olympics, and this was already held twice. So this is the third time Paris is hosting. Earlier, it was in 1900 as well as 1924. Okay, and then if you see, the motto was nothing but the games wide open. Okay, what is it? The games wide open, which is also Oberon Grand less, I think, Oberon Grand less Geo. Okay, this is what it is actually called in France. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. So games wide open. Then if you see the participating nations, there were around 206 nations, including the refugee Olympic team. What do you mean by refugee Olympic team? This was actually constituted in the year 2016. Okay, so it is a team. They actually, the participants over there, they are independent and they don't represent any country. Anyways, the naming should have been better, but anyways, it is called as a refugee Olympic team. And the total sports, they have 32 sports in total, and newly we have 4 important sports. This can be a question. Again, it's unpredictable about UPSC on what they will ask. So break dancing, then you have sport climbing, and then you have skateboarding and surfing. So these were the 4 games that were involved. Okay, breakdance, skateboard, surfing, as well as sport climbing. And cricket, is it a part of Olympics? No, it is not a part of Olympics. However, there have been discussions in order to include this over here. Okay, so this is about your Olympic games. Olympic is over. Next one, India and the Olympics. So India first participated in the Olympics around 1900, where there was a representation. He was a Britisher only, but he represented India. Norman Pritchard was the first representative. Not important again. First gold, field hockey, 1928, Amsterdam. Next one, first individual gold in 2008, we had Abhinav Bindra winning gold for our country for shooting. Next one, field hockey dominance. You can see India's men's field hockey team. They won 6 consecutive gold medals from the period of 1928 to 1956. And there were total of 8 gold medals in the sport. Okay. And then most successful Olympics is the 2020 Tokyo Olympics that held in 2021, because we had the COVID-19 pandemic over there, where India was actually most successful because we had, or we bagged over 7 medals, 1 gold, 2 silver and 4 bronze. Again, not important. Reason why we have very low success rates when compared to China as well as other countries is that there is lack of sufficient support as well as sufficient sports infrastructure. Okay, and again, there is not enough funding in India which is dedicated to sports. Okay, and also there is a lot of political interference into this particular arena, or you can say the political interference into the sports federations, where decisions are taken according to the government in the name of administrative convenience. And also there are stereotypes as well as social norms where women are not allowed to participate or take part in par with that of men in the sports activities. Okay, so it is not seen as a yielding process. Okay, so they actually see that the success rate of women in this sport is very less. So people think women can't do anything, but women can go to space and they can rule the world. So that is what women are capable of, right? Okay, so let us continue. So Financial Action Task Force. So there was recently the mutual evaluation on the performance of India by the Financial Action Task Force. I already told you it is an international organization which was founded in the year 1989, and this is the initiative of G7. Very important. What are the 7 countries? Please do mention in the comment section. Is India part of this or not? Of G7? No. Okay, but India part of FATF. That is true. Okay, so this is a force that is actually headquartered in France, in Paris. Okay, and it has a plenary body, which is the highest decision making body. It actually takes care of the policies in order to combat money laundering, and in 2001 its mandate was expanded to terror financing also. So initially it was aimed only to cater towards money laundering, but after which it moved towards this one also. So the objective, again, money laundering, terror financing and other gaps in the international financial system. Paris, France, and then you have FATF plenary, which is a decision making body. Okay, so this is what it meets thrice a year. So members, there are around 40 members. Okay, 40 members, including 2 regional organizations. Very important. Okay, so did we see which of the organization actually has the observer status in the United Nations? Whether it was Shanghai Cooperation Organization or which organization, we discussed that. Okay, so these kind of pointers become very important for the examination. Okay, so 40 members were there. First one is a European Commission and the Gulf, 40 members and 2 regional groupings, GCC as well as EU are a part of it. Okay, so the categories under this one is, there are certain lists under which the FATF places different countries. Okay, whether what is their effort towards the anti-money laundering, how do they combat financing of terrorism. So based on all this, the countries are placed under these categories. First one is regular follow-up. Okay, so here countries which generally comply with the FATF are actually placed there, but there are certain areas of non-compliance. So those are the countries which are placed here, and you need to know India is placed over here. Okay, the next one, that is regular follow-up. The next one is enhanced follow-up. Okay, so these countries will actually report to FATF only 2 to 3 years. Okay, because they have a higher risk of money laundering and they have certain deficiencies in their structure in order to combat this particular terror financing. So next one is blacklist. These are very high risk jurisdiction. Okay, so here there is actually a call of action that actually takes place. That is, whichever country have severe strategic deficiencies, then those countries are actually part of it, and they have to be extremely diligent in reporting whatever they do and what are the countermeasures they are taking. Next one is the grey list. Okay, so these are the countries again under increased monitoring. Okay, so increased monitoring, and here they have to actively work with the FATF in order to resolve or plug the gaps in their strategic inefficiencies. Next one is no follow-up. These are the countries which are actually, they have a pass mark, that is, they do not have any kind of deficiencies in their strategic policies. Okay, so this is what it is. So next one, key highlights. India actually follows, it falls under the regular follow-up category. Okay, so it is one of the 4 countries under G20. That is, what are the other countries? You have UK, France and Italy and Russia. So this makes significant milestone in our efforts in order to combat money laundering as well as terror financing. Okay, so what are the areas of improvement that India has actually done? So improvements India has done in different areas, but what are the different areas where improvement has to be done is that, first one, there has to be supervision and implementation of preventive measures in non-financial sectors. Next one, there has to be addressing in the delays of coming to what to say, prosecutions with respect to these cases, okay, where the crime has already been done, you need to prosecute it quickly. Next one, counter financing of terrorism measures for non-profit organizations are implemented. You just have to ensure that this is implemented using a risk-based approach. Okay, so these are all the key highlights of India's performance. Next one is Bharat Pol portal. So recently you have the Union Home Minister, he inaugurated the Bharat Pol portal in order to boost the efficiency of the Indian investigative agency, which is what? The Central Bureau of Investigation, in tracking who? The fugitives. These are the people who are demanded by law, who have committed significant mistake, but they actually go into hiding. Okay, so that is why we actually have the Bharat Pol, where there is international cooperation. That is, this national initiative will collaborate with the International Criminal Police Organization, that is Interpol. They can even issue notices, okay, and then they can spot the people who has gone into the hiding. So that those people are called as the fugitives. So this Bharat Pol has been developed by the Central Bureau of Investigation. It enables, that is, state and the central agencies can directly contact the Interpol also for real-time information regarding any accused. Okay, so it's a significant shift from the previous system. So earlier only CBI can do that, but now what happens? You even have the state what to say, bodies coordinating over here to streamline the international cooperation in order to take care of the transnational crimes that are actually happening. It can include the cyber crime, it can be any kind of trafficking, drug trafficking, or it can also be human trafficking. So this is what is the Bharat Pol portal. So key features of the portal, it has a unified law enforcement platform, that is it connects the CBI, that is the NCB, New Delhi. Okay, so it's in the what to say, capital New Delhi, with you have police authorities across India. They can also be superintendents of police as well as commissioners of police, and they will all have seamless integration by using this particular portal. And then international assistance is there through Interpol. Okay, next one, efficient handling of the notices. Okay, so when you actually talk to them, integrate with them, and then get your notices and issue, there is actually going to be you have to efficiently handle it. Okay, and then there is capacity training, where there will be training of state law enforcement agencies also effectively how to use this Bharat Pol, how to enhance international cooperation with Interpol, and so on. Okay, so this is what is your Bharat Pol. Next is free movement regime. The Ministry of Home Affairs recently recommended to immediately suspend this free movement regime. I told you what is the free movement regime, right? Free movement regime is nothing but it is a bilateral agreement that India has with that of Myanmar. Okay, so since both the countries actually have a lot of ties over the years, not only the trade ties, etc., we also have the soft power going over there. We also have ethnic as well as linguistic, and then we have the matrimonial alliances across the border. So that is why people are allowed to move freely from, to that border, from that border to this border. Do you understand? But now, due to insurgencies, what happens? They have actually called for immediate suspension of the free movement regime that we have. Okay, so let us see what is this free movement regime. So free movement regime is a bilateral agreement between India, Myanmar, okay, for the easy cross-border movement of the people who are living along the border. Next one, when did it come into existence? In 2018, and this is what? For further economic connectivity. Economic connectivity and then integration. Then you have the cultural ties also with Southeast Asia, and this is, you know, part of our what to say, look east policy, okay, of India. If you see India's foreign policy, look east policy becomes very important for us, okay. So here what happens, if you want to have, like, if someone from Myanmar wants to come and stay in India for over 2 weeks, then what happens, I need to have a 1 year border pass, okay. And for me also to visit that country, I need to also have a 1 year border pass. So this is actually the border that you can see. Myanmar, it shares, in India and Myanmar shares around 1643 kilometer of border. And how to remember this? AP, and from north to south, Na, Ma, Mi. Okay, so Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, as well as Mizoram. So Namami. Okay, so these are the countries that actually follow border with that of Myanmar. Here you have Bangladesh. For Bangladesh also you need to know which are the states that border. Okay. Now, moving forward, so you saw 1643 kilometer border. It is actually an unfenced border, and the largest is actually shared by what? Arunachal Pradesh, 520, and the least is Nagaland, that is 215 kilometers. Okay, so it runs from the tri-point with China in the north and tri-point with Bangladesh. Okay, so in the north you have China, and in the south you have the Bangladesh. Okay, so Assam Rifles is tasked with guarding this. Now you need to know what are the different armed forces, okay, or the central armed forces which are located in different borders, okay. So if you see the India-Myanmar border, you have your Assam Rifles. And then if you see India-Bangladesh and India-Pakistan border, you have the BSF, that is your Border Security Force. Border Security Force. And then if you see India and China border, you have the Indo-Tibetan Border Police. What else we have left? Okay, we have India-Nepal as well as India-Bhutan border. We have the Sastra Seema Bal. So these are the different agencies, that is the armed forces which are actually present. So Assam Rifles with respect to the India-Myanmar border. So due to the increased porosity as well as insurgencies that are happening by different insurgent groups, now across, we were earlier able to move freely within 40 kilometers from both sides of the border. Now it has reduced to around, what to say, 16 kilometers, and this free movement regime lately it was revised in 2016. Okay, so this is what it is. Now if you see here, this is actually the border. Earlier from the border you can move up to 40 kilometers. Now you can move only up to 16 kilometers on both the sides. Okay, so this is the free movement regime, India-Myanmar border. Next, we will move towards the grey zone warfare. So what do you mean by grey zone warfare? We already discussed, right? What do you mean by the grey zone warfare? This is not explicit violence also. At the same time, it is not what? The establishment of clear-cut peace also. Okay. So this is kind of, an informal warfare that is actually taking place. Like I told you, the economic sanctions or freezing of the assets, etc. Right? So let's see what is this. So during 2024 Raisina dialogue, India's Chief of Defence Staff had actually said that grey zone warfare is the latest in the informal warfare. So I told you, what is this informal warfare? It can be in the form of cyber attacks, I told you, in another country, or it can be any kind of economic burden or the pressure that you are causing or the coercion that you are causing in another country. Or you are causing proxy warfare, that is you are fighting on behalf of someone, or you are supporting someone and fighting your enemy through someone, that is called as the proxy warfare. This is one thing, and these are all unconventional methods, or you can say there is passing of misinformation or the fake news. Okay, so this can also be one of the ways. Okay, so this is called as the gray zone warfare. There is no clear cut warfare, but everything is very gray. So there is either white or black. No, there is neither of it. So gray zone warfare, it is a military strategy where actions and tactics are between traditional warfare and peace. Okay, so this is peace and this is war. So somewhere over here is what to say, gray zone warfare. Okay, it compasses coercive, subversive and the ambiguous activities that are actually taking place by the state and the non-state actors, and they do not engage in open conflict. Okay, so this includes your cyber attacks, your misinformation or the disinformation, the economic burden, the proxy warfare, etc. So this is what is your gray zone warfare. So there's a lot of ambiguity with respect to gray zone warfare. Okay, and also here it is covert and then overt operations are over here, not important. Okay, so avoiding direct conflict, this is also a part of gray zone warfare. This and all is not important. Okay, so just leave it. You just have to understand what do you mean by the gray zone warfare. So having finished almost 95% of your important articles of international relations, now we will close the session by discussing few of the military exercises, and there is nothing much to understand in this military exercises. It's all very static, and you just have to memorize it and cram it. If you are lucky enough, you will have any of the above appearing in your examination. If not, you have to just go by the elimination techniques. Okay, because questions are never asked directly in the examination. You need to know how do you have to use the elimination strategy. Do you understand? So let's quickly jump into this particular exercise, or I will discuss around 5 to 10 exercises, and after that the remaining I will actually give it to you in the form of material and the PDF. If you want access to this particular content that we are actually teaching, please do mention in the comment section. You can either download it from our Narayana IAS Academy app, where across the corresponding video we have the PPT also that is actually provided for you guys to read. If not, you can actually follow it up from the classes itself, or during your quick revision you can pause the video and you can actually keep it. Just give me a minute. Keep it in 2x or 1.5 speed and then you can watch. Okay. Okay, let me go through the comment section, and if there's nothing there, we will continue. Okay. Okay, let us continue then. The first one, military exercises. I'm going backwards. Okay, so military exercises that took place in 2025. I'm going to underline only the most important words. So here the first one is La Peru. Okay, La Peru 25. So here navies actually took place, Indo-Pacific nations. This also included India. Okay, so what was the location? Strait of Malacca, Sunda and Lombok. You need to know where these locations are. Date not important. Here enhance the safety and maritime security and interoperability in order of maritime crisis. Okay, so here training of the individuals are actually involved, or the operators or operations are involved. Maritime security training. That's it. La Peru, it actually took place Strait of Malacca. India is a part. Okay. Next one, Maritime partnership exercise with the French Navy. Indian Navy participated, Indian Air Force and the French Navy participated. Off the coast of India, here there were joint navigational drills and maritime partnership exercises that were taking place. Okay, so here you need to know the Indian Air Force Su-30 MKI. You need to know about this one. Please make note and understand about what is this particular defense system. Okay, and also the Rafale M fighters. So again, you need to know about the missiles and the aircraft, what it's capable of doing, what is its payload, etc. At least even if you don't know the entire details about it, overview you have to know about these missiles. Okay, so that is why you need to follow our science and technology classes where defense infrastructure is also a part of current affairs. We have actually taken, it was taken up by Yogesh sir. Okay, so please do watch the session. Next one is Tropex 25. This is a theater level operational readiness exercise 2025. Here Indian Navy, Indian Army and the Indian Air Force, all the three forces actually participated, and the Indian Coast Guard also participated. Indian Ocean region. Okay, so don't think tropics it is some other country. Here we had all our forces along with the Indian Coast Guard. Okay, so here operational concepts and then operational readiness, and in case of any kind of threat to the environment, you'll have to be ready. Rocket firings were there and everything was there. Okay, next one, exercise Devil Strike. Exercise Devil Strike. So here we actually had Indian Army's airborne troops and the Indian Air Force. Okay, again Devil Strike India only. So training areas and firing ranges near the Siliguri corridor. Important. Where is Siliguri corridor? Also called as the Chicken Neck. Please do locate. Okay, so where is it? Let us see. Please do mention that in the comment section. Please have your map also with, atlas also with you. Objective is what you validate the complex airborne operation and what is your precision insertion methods of the troops over here. All that is being discussed over here. Okay. So next one, if we see exercise Sinbaks. Sinbaks. Okay. So this is between the Cambodian army and the Indian army. Okay. Cambodia plus India. So Sinbaks. Do you understand this one? And then this actually took place in Pune. This is enhance the collaboration, planning and executing the joint counter terrorism. Okay. So this is what it is. And this is under the United Nations Charter, which pertains to the peacekeeping missions. Okay. So Sinbaks, India as well as Cambodia. Next one is Harimau Shakti. Okay. So this is between Indian Army, Malaysian Army. This is the 4th edition that actually took place where this is at the Bentong camp in the Pahang district of Malaysia. Again, primary, this one is to enhance the joint military capabilities of both the nations, that is India as well as Malaysia. Again, part of chapter 6 or sorry, chapter 7, again not important, of the United Nations mandate. Next one, SLINEX, very easy, right? SLINEX is what? Sri Lanka, India naval exercise. Okay, so 11th edition, this one was actually taking place in the Vishakhapatnam under Eastern Naval Command. So this is the SLINEX 24, initiated in the year 2005. Okay, in order to bring about strong maritime ties between the two nations and also make the rules-based maritime environment in the region. Okay, what is rules-based? All the regulations, all the in the collaboration between two countries must be based on rules and not based on force. So this is what is the rules-based order. Next one, Surya Kiran. What is Surya Kiran? This is between India as well as Nepal. I think I'm right. Yeah, it's between India as well as the Nepali army. Okay, so this actually took place in Nepal. Here again, interoperability, jungle warfare. Then counter-terrorism missions are actually taking place in the mountainous regions, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief efforts. Next one, Garuda Shakti. Garuda Shakti between India as well as Indonesia. India and Indonesia. Let's see. Yeah, India, Indonesia Special Forces. Okay. So this actually took place again in Indonesia. Again, the interoperability capabilities of both the countries. Okay. Next one is Purvi Prahar. What is Purvi Prahar? Here, Indian Army conducted high intensity tri-services exercise. All the Army, the Navy and the Air Forces actually came here in the forward areas of Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, so this is the tri-service exercise Purvi Prahar to improve the combat effectiveness of all the integrated forces during their joint operations. So this is what is exercise Purvi Prahar. Next one, Sagar Manthan. So this is launched by the Narcotics Control Bureau, very important, Sagar Manthan Narcotics Control Bureau with the Indian Navy and the Coast Guard. Okay, Sagar. We have Sagar initiative, right? Welfare of all in the region. So that is what is the Sagar. Growth, security and growth of all in the region is the Sagar full form. So Sagar Manthan means you have something with respect to that of the Navy, where you have the Coast Guard as well as the narcotics also. So here narcotics is involved. Why? Because in order to avoid or combat the menace of drug trafficking through maritime routes, and also aligns with the Nashka Mukt Bharat, that is drug free India by 2047. Next one, Vajra Prahar. Okay, so exercise Vajra Prahar. So this actually commenced at the United States. It is between India as well as United States to strengthen the interoperability of both the armies. I'm sorry, armies. And here it was represented by special forces, not important again. So Vajra Prahar is by these two armies. So Purvi Prahar, it is a tri-service exercise. Don't confuse between Purvi Prahar, Vajra Prahar, etc. Next one, Austra Hind. Easy, no? Australia plus India. So both of them actually came together. Again, military interoperability. Next, exercise Sea Vigil. What do you mean by Sea Vigil? This is a pan-India coastal defense exercise. Okay, Sea Vigil, and initiated in 2018 in order to see how this 26/11 attacks had actually taken place. Okay, so from there they wanted to enhance the maritime security. Then it involves activating coastal security apparatus. Again, not important. So just the coastal defense mechanism has to be enhanced in order to prevent any kind of threats like this. So next one is Kazin. Okay, name itself, India, Kazakhstan. So military exercise Kazin took place in Uttarakhand. Again, military capabilities and counter terrorism. Next, Malabar. It is between India as well as United States. Japan and Australia later joined. Very, very important. Okay, so this is actually a multinational. Now it is a multinational. It is no more one bilateral. So Malabar was between India, US, then Japan, Australia joined it. And then this supports the vision of Sagar, security and growth of all in the region. Next one is SIMBEX. This is Singapore, India Maritime Bilateral Exercise. Okay, so this started as exercise Lion King in 1994. Participating forces, Navy and the Republic of Singapore Navy. So both the navies actually participate. Exercise Nazim al-Bahar. So this actually, the name itself feels like it is one of the association with what? The Middle East nations. So you have India, Oman, India and Oman. So here it symbolizes the long-term strategic relationship both of them actually share, and Oman happens to be the first country in the Gulf Cooperation Council. This has actually, which has been conducting the bilateral exercises with India jointly. Next, Kazin, we saw, right? This is India, Kazakhstan, we already saw. The next one is exercise Varuna. So Varuna, I think it's between India and France. Where is it? For the first time you have exercise Varuna. Bilateral, yeah, see, India and France. This is exercise Varuna. Who is between, what is Garuda? Garuda is India and Indonesia. Varuna is between who? India and France. Okay. So, and we had this participation of the P-8I Poseidon aircraft. What is this aircraft? It is a long range maritime patrol aircraft that has been developed by Boeing. Okay. So, this is very important. And here it is used by the US Navy, specially customized by the Indian Navy. Next one, designed for anti-submarine warfare, ASW, and also there is anti-surface warfare, and then intelligence, surveillance, and also other purposes it is actually used. Very important, Varuna. Then exercise Eastern Bridge, then you have Sadbhav, then Naja, then Tarang Shakti. all these exercises you can actually go through, otherwise the list is huge. Okay, so we'll just have to go through all these, see how many exercises are there. Okay, so there are almost 35 to 40 exercises which are actually mentioned, and going through each and explaining it in detail will become very laborious. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so almost we are actually done with everything except for few of these like exercise million and everything. You just have to know in which region it has taken place, because now if we start reading all the 50 articles, it will be like overwhelming. So focus on all the other international organizations that we have done in the previous 5 classes, and then you just have to focus on this particular a PDF that we will actually be sharing for you for your reference, and then you can just use it during your revision in the last minutes, that is the last 2 days or before the examination. Just skim through it so that if it actually comes in the examination, it will be very helpful. So thank you so much for watching, and I really enjoyed this particular phase of teaching all of you this particular current affairs, specifically the top or the 100 most important current affairs for the upcoming examination. I hope most of the questions will actually reflect in your question paper, and I hope all of you will actually go towards your go to your examination with all confidence as well as conceptual clarity, so that and please do sleep well, please take care of your health, stay hydrated because it's extreme summer. And thank you so much for listening, and we will again meet in our analysis of the question paper of the prelims examination. Okay, so after our prelims examination, we'll meet in the question paper analysis, after which we will see how do we have to prepare for the mains examination of 2025. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed teaching all of you guys. Thank you really. In case of any assistance, please do reach out to us and write to us. And in case if you enjoyed these sessions, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you and all the best.